I want you to imagine a very specific scenario for a second. You're just sitting on your couch,
Yeah.
and you've just finished, like a 45-minute phone call with a family member.
Oh, we all know this feeling.
Right. You pull the phone away from your ear,
Yeah.
you press end, and the exact second the screen goes black, you suddenly realize you feel physically heavier. Like
Yeah.
you feel completely exhausted, drained of color, or maybe you just feel, I don't know, somehow smaller than when you first picked up the phone.
Yeah, it's this really palpable sinking sensation in your body. Like you haven't run a marathon or anything, you haven't been lifting heavy boxes, but your energy reserves are just completely depleted.
Exactly. And that very specific yet incredibly universal feeling is what brings us to today's deep dive. We're jumping into this really incredible guide from SolveHera, and it's called Setting Boundaries with Family.
Which is such a loaded topic for so many of us.
Oh, completely. And our mission for this conversation is to explore a truly calm, sustainable approach to saying no and, actually holding space for yourself. Because let's be honest, usually when we hear the word boundaries online, the advice is just incredibly drastic.
Right. It's all about, building massive fortress walls or going entirely no contact.
Just completely cutting people off.
Exactly. The traditional advice often jumps straight to the nuclear option, and that just doesn't reflect the reality of most people's lives.
Mm.
I mean, what's so compelling about the material we're unpacking today is the tone of it. It's rooted in telling the truth to yourself first.
Right.
And it's written explicitly for the version of you who loves your family deeply. You don't want to cut them off. But simultaneously and almost inexplicably, you are utterly drained by what that love seems to require of you every single day.
Yeah, let's really dig into that exhaustion, because the distinction the guide makes right out of the gate is just brilliant. They point out that this isn't the tiredness of, like, missing a few hours of sleep.
No, not at all.
It's a heaviness. It settles right behind your eyes or right in the center of your chest. I mean, think about staring at your phone while the family group chat is just going off with, like, 50 messages about planning a summer trip.
Oh, man, the group chat dread.
Yes. You are physically typing "sounds great," smiley face, while literally staring blankly at the wall, feeling an absolute pit of dread in your stomach.
That dread is pure emotional fatigue. And, you can recognize it in your day-to-day life through two very clear warning signs. First, there's that quiet, simmering resentment that sort of creeps in when you agree to something you absolutely did not want to do.
Oh, the resentment is so real.
It is. And second, on the flip side of that, there is the intense, crushing guilt that follows when you actually do say no, even when no was the completely honest, necessary, and, healthy answer for your own well-being.
Right, so those two feelings, the resentment and the guilt, they are essentially the check engine lights on your emotional dashboard.
Yeah.
They're pointing to this massive, painful gap between what you genuinely want to do and what you feel permitted to want.
Yeah. Beautifully put, yes.
But I want to push back a little here just to play devil's advocate. Because the people asking things of us in these scenarios, they aren't strangers on the street demanding favors.
Right, they're family.
Exactly. These are our parents, our siblings, our grandparents. So doesn't love naturally require some level of sacrifice? I mean, isn't putting your own desires aside occasionally just, part of the deal when you love someone?
Well, that right there is the exact knot we need to untangle today. Because somewhere along the line, especially in really close-knit units, love became hopelessly confused with obligation.
Oh, wow. Love versus obligation.
Right. We just absorbed this idea that loving your family means you must be perpetually available, endlessly agreeable, and present on their specific schedule without a single complaint. But sacrifice is a choice you make freely. Obligation is a debt you never agreed to take on.
That is such a huge distinction. So the message sort of morphs from "I love you" into "I owe you my constant availability."
Exactly. And that confusion drives an incredible amount of suffering. I mean, if you feel guilty for just wanting a Saturday entirely to yourself to read a book, or you feel selfish for wanting to spend a holiday in your own living room, you naturally start to internalize a very toxic narrative.
You start thinking, what is wrong with me?
Yes. You think, I'm being difficult, I'm a bad daughter, I'm an ungrateful son.
Which is just an enormous burden to carry around.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you are not being difficult, and you're not being ungrateful. You are simply a human being with real limits, a finite amount of energy, and a real inner life that deserves space.
Perfectly said.
But, okay, if this cycle of obligation is so draining, why is it so incredibly hard to just say the word no? I mean, why does a two-letter word feel like stepping on a literal landmine?
Well, This brings us to the actual mechanics of how we were raised,
Mm.
because struggling to set boundaries is not a character flaw.
Right.
It's not because you lack confidence or assertiveness. It is a deeply ingrained biological and cultural response. The early lessons we learned about what it means to be a quote-unquote good family member run really deep.
And this is heavily socialized, right?
Mhm.
Especially for women and daughters.
Oh, absolutely. Women are often taught from a very young age that keeping everyone else comfortable is their primary job.
Right. There's this unspoken message that being good means being accommodating, and that upsetting someone is somehow a catastrophic failure on your part. I was actually thinking about how to visualize this dynamic, and it reminds me of a solar system.
Oh, I like that. How so?
So imagine your family is this deeply established planetary system. Every single family member is a planet in a very specific set orbit. Everyone knows their path. But if one planet suddenly decides, hey, I'm exhausted, I'm going to shift my orbit just 2 degrees to the left, the gravitational pull of that entire massive system fights to snap that planet back into its original place. It hates the change.
That solar system analogy is so good because it beautifully captures the physics of a family unit. I mean, Jupiter isn't going to just let a moon wander off. The gravity literally won't allow it.
Exactly.
And if we bring in attachment psychology here, that gravitational pull makes perfect, terrifying sense to our nervous systems. Let's break down how that actually works in a childhood home.
Okay, yes, let's do the like I'm five version of attachment psychology. Because when you say gravitational pull, we are really talking about survival, aren't we?
We absolutely are.
Like if I'm a 6-year-old child and I say no to my parents and they respond by withdrawing their warmth or getting angry, my brain doesn't just think, oh, mom is mad.
No, not at all.
My primitive brain literally translates that to, I'm going to be abandoned in the wilderness and I will not survive.
Exactly.
Right.
Because to a child, parental approval equals physical survival. So if you were raised in a system where love felt conditional, where being compliant, quiet, and agreeable was the currency you used to earn warmth and keep the peace, then your nervous system actually wired itself to believe that saying no is a literal threat to your life. You develop what psychologists call the fawn response.
Wait, fawn. Like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Yes, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fawning is essentially people-pleasing as a trauma reflex. It's a survival strategy.
So my brain learned that saying no will cost me my connection, my safety, and basically my place in the pack. It is a brilliant, highly rational survival strategy when I was 6 years old living in that house.
What a completely brilliant adaptation. Your brain did exactly what it needed to do to keep you safe. The tragedy, though, is that the exact same survival strategy that protected you as a child is now the very thing slowly bankrupting your adult life.
Wow.
It's costing you your autonomy, your free time, and your mental health.
And returning to that solar system idea, when you finally do start to assert a boundary, the family system pushes back hard. The planets freak out because the gravity shifted. But understanding this psychology offers such a massive relief, I think.
How do you mean?
Well, the pushback from your family isn't necessarily them acting out of cruelty or malice. It is simply the discomfort of disruption. They are reacting to the gravity changing.
That's exactly right. They are just trying to restore the familiar equilibrium. But since this gravitational pull is largely invisible, it can make you feel like you're losing your mind. I mean, you think you're just trying to rest, and they act like you've committed treason.
Yeah, so how do we actually spot this invisible pull acting on us in our daily lives? Because the guide maps out these specific emotional patterns, and instead of just listing out symptoms, let's walk through the actual life cycle of a boundary failure.
I love this part of the material. It's a cascade effect, really.
Yeah.
And as we map out this sequence, just keep in mind there is no judgment here. Recognizing yourself in this cycle is simply gathering data about how your nervous system reacts to pressure.
Right, so the cycle almost always starts with a notification.
Mm-hmm.
Your phone buzzes, it's your mom or maybe your sister asking you to host a family dinner this weekend. And before you've even taken a breath, you experience pattern one, the preemptive yes.
Oh, the autopilot, yes.
Yes. Your thumbs are just moving on their own. You type, sure, I'd love to, while your stomach completely drops. You agree before you've even checked in with your own reality.
Because that fawn response has hijacked your brain. You bypassed your own limits just to neutralize the perceived threat of their potential disappointment. But the moment you hit send, pattern 2 arrives. The guilt spiral.
Wait, guilt? Why would I feel guilty if I just said yes and made them happy?
Well, you feel guilty because a quiet part of you realizes you just betrayed yourself again. But because you aren't allowed to be mad at them, you turn it inward. You start searching for evidence that you were wrong to feel tired in the first place.
Oh, I see.
You tell yourself, it's just one dinner, I'm being selfish, I should have more energy. You minimize your own needs to justify the yes you just gave.
Which leads right into the absolute ugliest part of the life cycle, pattern 3, the slow resentment build.
Yeah, it really is.
Because you said yes when every cell in your body meant no, the pressure has to go somewhere. So you start getting quietly, intensely irritable with the people around you over entirely unrelated things.
You're suddenly furious at how loud your partner is chewing their food.
Exactly. Or you're snapping at the dog. Or you're resentful about the tone of a totally normal text message. It's a pressure cooker venting steam.
And that irritability isn't a personality flaw. It is just the natural byproduct of your core needs going completely unacknowledged. And to cope with that simmering anger, we arrive at the actual event and launch right into pattern 4, the performance of fine.
Oh man, the exhausting Academy Award-winning performance of ease. You are at the dinner you didn't want to host. You are pouring wine. You are laughing at the jokes. You are making bright conversation. But inside, you are completely disassociated.
You are running on absolute fumes.
You insist everything is fine, but the performance itself takes whatever tiny bit of energy you had left.
And then you wake up the next day feeling like you were hit by a truck, which guarantees that the next time they ask for something, you are desperate to protect yourself, which triggers the final pattern, the over-explanation.
Okay, the over-explanation. This is the one we really need to sit with because it is staggeringly relatable. When we do finally try to say no to the next invitation, we treat our own needs like a legal brief.
A legal brief, yes.
We act like we are standing in front of the Supreme Court presenting airtight, forensic evidence just to justify why we can't come to a Sunday barbecue.
You don't just say you can't make it. You say, I'd love to come, but the car has been making a weird rattling noise, and I feel a migraine coming on behind my left eye, and my dog has been acting depressed, and I have a huge presentation on Tuesday that I'm behind on.
We pile on 10 different excuses, just hoping that maybe one of them will be deemed acceptable by the jury. But think about what's happening there. We do that because years of conditioning have taught us that a simple no is illegitimate. We act as if our basic human need for a day of rest is not a valid enough reason on its own. We feel like we have to prove we are physically incapacitated just to be excused.
It's so true. And honestly, the discomfort you feel hearing that cycle described out loud is actually a massive advantage. That discomfort points directly toward the fact that the system is broken and it's time to break the orbit.
So we understand the physics of the solar system. We see the fawning trauma response. We know the exhausting life cycle of a boundary failure. What is the actual cure here? How do we stop typing, sure, smiley face, when we just want to scream?
The solution relies on what the guide calls a calm framework. It's a quiet structure to rely on when your nervous system starts panicking. And the very first thing you have to do is interrupt the biology of that fawn response. You have to pause before you respond and feel before you decide.
Let's talk about the biology of that pause. Because doing absolutely nothing sounds passive, but it's actually the most active step you can take. Your phone buzzes, the request comes in. Instead of replying, you physically put the phone in a drawer and walk away for 20 minutes.
Yes, you are literally letting the cortisol flush out of your bloodstream. The pause stops the amygdala hijack. Saying, let me check my schedule and get back to you, gives your logical brain time to come back online. It gives you the space to notice your body tightening up.
Right, and once your nervous system is actually regulated, you can move to the next phase. Separating love from obligation. You actively remind yourself that declining an invitation to a barbecue is not a declaration that you hate your family. You can love someone deeply and fiercely and still need a nap.
Which brings us to the actual execution of the boundary. Practicing saying less, not more. You drop the Supreme Court legal brief. You don't mention the car or the dog or the migraine. You just say, I can't make it this time, full stop.
Okay, wait. Here is where I have to sound the alarm. Because if I just text my mother, I can't make it this time, with a full stop and absolutely no explanation, she will probably call the police to do a wellness check on me.
Right, it feels terrifying.
It feels like walking directly into a trap. They are going to demand to know why. They're going to be hurt.
That is the exact fear that keeps everyone trapped. And it is exactly why the next step is so critical. Expect some discomfort, yours and theirs. When you change your orbit, you create disruption. They are going to feel uncomfortable. But, and this is the massive paradigm shift you have to embrace, their discomfort is not your responsibility to manage or fix.
I really want to highlight that. If they're annoyed or confused or disappointed that I'm not coming, I don't have to jump in and soothe them.
You do not. You are changing a decades-old pattern, and systems inherently resist change. This is sometimes called an extinction burst in psychology. When you stop rewarding a behavior, the other party will often push twice as hard before they finally give up and accept the new reality.
Wow, an extinction burst. It makes me think of playing tug-of-war. For years, you and your family have been pulling on this thick rope of obligations, guilt, and expectations. Your hands are bleeding. You're exhausted. But you keep pulling back because, well, that's the game.
Right.
Setting a boundary isn't pulling harder on the rope. Setting a boundary is just opening your hands and dropping your end of the rope.
Oh, that is a phenomenal way to visualize it. I love that.
Yeah, and if you drop the rope, the person on the other end might stumble backwards. They might be shocked. They might yell at you to pick the rope back up. But the game is over. You aren't fighting them. You are just standing there, refusing to pull.
And just because you drop the rope doesn't mean you have to be cruel about it, which is the final piece of this framework. Repair without retreat.
So how do I talk to them after I've dropped the rope?
It means that if a family member pushes back or expresses genuine hurt, you don't have to be cold, and you definitely don't have to get defensive. You can acknowledge their disappointment with total warmth while remaining utterly steady in your decision.
Like saying what, exactly?
You say, I hear that you're disappointed and I love you, but I still need to honor what I said. I'm going to stay home.
It is the ultimate display of maturity. You are staying in the connection, you are offering love, but you are not picking the rope back up.
Exactly. And it takes immense practice to hold that posture, but the pushback absolutely gets quieter over time as they learn the new physics of the solar system.
So, synthesizing all of this, what is the real takeaway for you, the listener?
Yeah.
You have likely spent a very, very long time being the shock absorber for your family. You've smoothed over the rough edges, you've stayed 3 hours longer than you wanted to, you've swallowed your nose, and you've carried way more than your fair share of the emotional weight.
And you did all of those things out of a profound, genuine love and a desperate desire for connection. None of those actions make you weak. You don't need to look back at your past behavior and feel ashamed. You were surviving.
Right. The ultimate goal here isn't to turn you into a cold, rigid, boundary-enforcing robot. The goal is simply to ask you to take a tiny fraction of that exact same immense care you give to everyone else. And for the first time in your life, extend it inward. Treat your own nervous system with the exact same reverence you've always given to the needs of your family.
It really is a quiet revolution of self-respect.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a completely different thought experiment to carry with you today. We've talked a lot about the past and how your childhood wired you to be a people pleaser. But think about the future. Think about the generational lines in your family.
The patterns passed down from grandparent to parent to you.
Yes. For generations, the people in your family might have equated suffering and self-sacrifice with love. They passed down the heavy, exhausting rope. What if your small, terrifying no today, your decision to drop the rope, isn't just about getting a Saturday to yourself? What if your boundary is the exact moment a century-old generational curse of people-pleasing finally breaks? What if you, holding your ground today, is the reason your future children or nieces or nephews never have to feel that heavy, sinking dread when their phone rings?
You aren't just protecting your own energy. You are modeling a completely new way to love. And clarity on how to do that doesn't come all at once. It comes slowly, kindly, and honestly.
So the next time you hang up the phone, you don't have to feel physically heavier. You can just be exactly the size you are. Take care of yourselves.